Okay, so today we are going to begin our study of Fire from the Rock. So make sure you have your Fire from the Rock booklet in front of you. As I read sections from Fire from the Rock, please make sure that you are using your text symbols for annotating text. The star for something that's important, check mark for something you understand. If you have an unfamiliar word, circle it. So please make sure you are using these text symbols in order to annotate, mark your text while you are reading along with me. We're going to do two excerpts today, Excerpt 1 and Excerpt 2, and in the middle I'm going to do kind of some story time summary to fill in the gaps for you between what happens in Excerpt 1 and Excerpt 2. So while I am giving you that summary, you are more than welcome to take notes. You are also more than welcome to just listen and soak the story in. All right, so Excerpt 1 in your Fire from the Rock booklet. Are they going to, a tough decision. Are they going to shut down our schools and make us all go to school with the white kids? Reggie asked. He sounded concerned. I like the fact that Dunbar and Mann are just for the colored kids. They don't want us and we don't need them. So the black kids don't want the white kids, and they don't need them, and the white kids feel the same about the black kids. Not a very nice place to grow up. No, Mr. Birmingham, said Miss Washington. This process may take years. Next week, we will start the selection process for those of you who might choose to be among the first, the proud, maybe even the famous. But it will not be easy. The white establishment does not want you there. It will be difficult, maybe even painful, and probably dangerous. I want you to go home tonight and talk to your parents. After much discussion and prayer, if you and your family want to be considered for this, I want you to let me know. We are slowly compiling a list of possible students to present to the school board. Only the best and the brightest will be chosen. Will you be among them? I know I don't want to be on that list, Sylvia heard Reggie say. The bell rang then, and Sylvia exhaled as if she had been underwater. Integration, here in Little Rock, finally. And she and her friends could be the ones chosen to do it. What a terrible, horrible, wonderful decision this would be. So integration is bringing the two races together in schools, no longer having a black bathroom and a white bathroom, no longer having a black waiting room and a white waiting room, or having sections on the bus where black people have to sit or white people have to sit. But integration means bringing them together. So they're trying to slowly bring black students into the white schools where there's more money and better resources, and they're only going to do a few black students at a time. She's saying it's going to be terrible and horrible, but also wonderful, because the idea of everybody being able to live together in peace is a wonderful idea, but it also could be quite dangerous knowing that some people don't want them there. Some of the white students, and even some of the black students like Reggie, don't want integration. They don't want to deal with these terrible white people that have been mistreating them for years. So, in between what happens in Excerpt 1 and Excerpt 2, here is my summary for you. A long summary. I wanted to make sure I didn't leave any important details out for you. So Sylvia is an 8th grader, and Donna Jean is her little sister, who is a 3rd grader. They call her DJ, Donna Jean, DJ. They're waiting for their Aunt Bessie to drop the laundry off that she did for a man named Mr. Crandall. And DJ actually ends up being bitten in the leg by one of Mr. Crandall's dogs. The rumor has it that these dogs, Mr. Crandall's dogs, have been trained to attack dark people. Mama cleans DJ up, her wounds, because she's bitten up pretty badly, and their brother Gary comes home, and he is furious about what has happened to his little sister. He thinks that they should immediately take action against Mr. Crandall, but Mama knows that everyone will just say that it's an accident and that no one would believe a black family. So after hearing how riled up Gary is, Sylvia writes a diary entry where she also seems to think that taking action would be a good idea. DJ is okay enough the next day to want to go to school, and Mom is really conservative and will not let Sylvia wear a poodle skirt, which used to be popular. It's kind of a poofy skirt that had a poodle on it. And during breakfast, Gary is more cheerful than normal. Sylvia asks if he will take her to Horace Mann High School's basketball game. She's in 8th grade, so she's not in high school. Gary's older. He is in high school. And she asks her older brother if he would take her to one of the basketball games. She tells him it's because she's thinking about being a cheerleader next year, and she wants to watch their moves. But Gary starts to poke fun at her, asking if she wants to go to look at the boys, the older boys. Sylvia also talks about how Reggie has gone from being a friend, so Reggie that we hear about in Excerpt 1, Reggie's gone from being a friend to something different. There is a little bit of a love connection now with those two. Sylvia pokes fun at Gary about his new love interest named Anita. Gary then drops the bomb that he wants, he's supportive of the school's integration. He does want the integration, the black students to come into the white schools. And he actually is interested in being a part of it, being one of the students who is integrated. This really upsets both of their parents, Mom and Dad, Sylvia and Gary's parents. They're really conservative, and they don't want to rock the boat or make changes. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. Gary also tells him that one of Mr. Crandall's dogs was poisoned last night. So, I wonder why Gary was in such a good mood this morning. So, Sylvia seems a little bit suspicious of Gary. You also hear about Sylvia's friend Rachel, and Rachel and Sylvia's relationship is very unusual because she is a white girl. She's also a Jewish girl. And if you know anything about World War II and Hitler, you know that Jewish people have had a really hard time. And she is very discriminated against, even though she is white and looks like the other white people. Rachel's family was always really nice and respectful to Sylvia's family, and they have gotten along for just about ever. They've been best friends. The girls, when they hang out, they talk about music and the difference between white and black music. They're really open about talking about these things. And even those that are talking about integration are making clear distinctions between the two races. So even though people that are supportive of integration, they still are saying that both races are very different. When Rachel comes over, they talk about boys and getting married, normal teenage girl things. It shows us that even though the color of your skin is different, it doesn't change what we go through as people. And these girls are a positive example of that. Sylvia talks about how she knows that Rachel's dad was in Auschwitz, which is a famous Nazi concentration camp during World War II. Not very many survivors of Auschwitz. Rachel's mom and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Zucker, Rachel Zucker is her name, own a grocery store, but people still look down on them. Sylvia also reflects on her only family problems, like how her grandfather, as well as many other innocent black people, are hung or killed every day by the whites. So they talk about all of these really normal things, and they also talk about racial things together. They don't care what color they are. They just like to talk about everything together. Lots of mistreatment against people that are different, Jewish, black. People are very judgmental. The kids are cold in the classroom at Horace Mann, the black school, because the heat is turned off during winter break to save money. It takes a long time for those heaters to warm up. They hear the janitor in the boiler room below cussing and laughing about it and they laugh about it like regular kids would. Laugh at adults that are having a hard time, even though you should not cuss in front of children. They also joke around about their older, stern, strict, and very serious teacher, Mrs. Washington. just like regular kids would. Mrs. Washington talks to students about the integration and how it will be hard. Like we saw in Excerpt 1, she keeps having conversations with them about it. In Sylvia's diary entry, she talks about how she likes Mrs. Washington a lot because she gives the students real-world advice and prepares them. She tries to make them responsible and competent by correcting their grammar and quizzing them on every aspect of every subject to make sure they're prepared. She tells them that she wants them to be just as smart as the white kids, and they are very capable of doing so. DJ asks Sylvia if they are poor because her father works at a brickyard and is a preacher at a church. Mr. Patterson can't actually lay bricks or set bricks because he's black and he can't join a union. So instead, he just cleans the brickyard up. They also don't make much money from the church because when people have hard times, they can't donate. Mrs. Patterson's a teacher. Black teachers make less than white teachers, and female teachers make less than male teachers, so Mrs. Patterson doesn't make very much. Mr. Patterson comes home late, and they're eating dinner wondering where Gary is. And then suddenly they hear a thud on the doorstep. And when they open up the door, someone has beaten Gary and thrown him there. Mom cleans him up, cleans all his wounds up, while he explains that he stopped by the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Persons. It was an association that helped colored people during these civil rights movements, helped colored people have a place to turn to when they have been mistreated or they would like to be a part of integration or things like that. It was a big organization. He wanted to find out more about the integration of the schools, and he wanted to know about the dates, which it was supposed to start in September that next year. And Johnny Crandall, so Mr. Crandall, his son, was out in the streets with some of the Smith boys, which are some rowdy white boys in the area, and they followed him in their car, yelled names at him. They threw beer cans at him, and he finally threw one back. Then they beat him up and took him home. In Sylvia's diary entry, she then talks about how someone has to stand up for change, but her parents seem to fear Gary's driven nature. She also mentions how black people cannot try clothing on in stores until they plan on buying it. Sylvia seems to want change, but Gary seems to want change in a more violent and aggressive fashion. Which one would you prefer? A violent way to get change, or a way that's a little bit more peaceful and thought out? We are introduced to Lou Ann. She's a cheerful girl whose father, Zeke, owns the barber shop where all of the black men get their hair cut. She's going steady with Otis, which means she's dating a boy named Otis. And during lunch, Lou Ann gives her advice to Sylvia to relax because that's what boys like. They like relaxed girls. Lou Ann calls Reggie over to have lunch with them and to give Sylvia and him a chance to talk. Reggie's really nice, and he tells Sylvia to tell Gary he has his back the next time something bad happens. Reggie also invites Sylvia to the man basketball game next week. Lou Ann and Sylvia plan to meet each other there so that Sylvia does not have to explain Reggie to her parents. That way she can say, I'm meeting a friend, a girlfriend, but really she's meeting Reggie there too. Mrs. Washington interrupts Sylvia's lunch and pulls her aside to ask her if she has considered being one of the first students at the white school. Sylvia seems really apprehensive, which means she's not so sure. But Mrs. Washington says she thinks that Sylvia is smart and respectful and exactly what they are looking for to send to the white schools. That night after dinner, Mrs. Washington actually comes to Sylvia's house to tell her parents about her recommendation for Sylvia to be one of the first integrated students. Her parents seem to deny this at first, but slowly they talk themselves into thinking about it. Sylvia isn't even sure if that's what she wants, but she knows it would be a step in the right direction for black people. It would be a peaceful way of doing something about it, is what she thinks. In church the next day, Mr. Patterson preaches about his family, which he never really does. He tells the congregation that he thinks it's time for a change, and he tells them that Sylvia has been considered as one of the integration students. He's going to let her try it. After church, many people give her their opinions, both for and against what she's doing. Reggie confronts her after church and tells her that he would not like having his girlfriend without him at a different high school. And Sylvia plays at school and says, "Who says I'm your girlfriend?" But she now considers herself his girlfriend. Their date at the basketball game at Man is on Friday. So Sylvia goes to Lily's flower shop to get flowers, and she stops by the Zuckers, Rachel Zucker's family's grocery store, to get food. She sees her friend Rachel, who's helping her father run the shop, and they talk for a little while. Sylvia tells her about her and Reggie and how they're official, and about how she's thinking about integrating at Central High School the next year. And Rachel tells her to remember that she will always be her friend, and she will be her friend at Central High School if she needs. When DJ and Sylvia are going to bed, DJ says she doesn't want the time to come for her to have to go to the white school. She doesn't want to ever have to go. She says that a friend of hers says that white people rule the world. Mrs. America's white, and the presidents are white until now. And anyone is important is white. Gary stops into their room to tell Sylvia that if he cannot be a freedom fighter, he's glad that Sylvia can, and he tells her he's proud of her. Sylvia is still unsure of how her relationship with Reggie will develop when she leaves his school, and Gary reassures her that she has him for keeps. Sylvia reflects in her diary about the meaning of beauty. DJ told her that she thought she was pretty, but Sylvia seems to have this idea in her head that the only features of white people are pretty. So she thinks only white people can be pretty, which I think is ridiculous. But that's the way things were back then. That's the way people thought. Grass is always greener on the other side, I guess. Sylvia and Reggie are on the phone, and Reggie tells her he doesn't want her to go to Central High. He points out that lions hang out with lions and bears hang out with bears. He also reminds Sylvia of how Dr. Martin Luther King just had his house bombed and that the white people can be really dangerous. But Sylvia uses her friend Rachel as an example of a good white person. Reggie points out that if Sylvia tried to date her brother, Rachel's dad wouldn't let it happen. So even though Sylvia is Rachel's friend, she wouldn't be allowed to date a white person. Sylvia tells us that she is unsure about leaving the black schools and that she feels she may be losing Reggie because of that too. Sylvia was self-conscious about her good work in class, but she knew this was why she was chosen for the integration. She's a good student. Reggie starts flirting with another pretty girl named Candy. This makes Sylvia really upset. Luann tells Sylvia that she thinks she should stay and keep Reggie. She says that no one will remember the kids that integrated first and that it's unfortunate that Sylvia cannot join clubs, cheerlead, or have any extra opportunities because she won't get to do those things at the white school. Sylvia feels like everyone's telling her what to do, and she's upset about Reggie. She has a meltdown at dinner and yells at DJ and Mama about silly things. Think about when you're really mad and you kind of explode on everyone. She leaves the dinner table early and crying. Gary explains that what she's going through to her parents, so he tries to defend her a little bit. Before bed, DJ reminds Sylvia that she is the person who has to live in her skin, and she should do whatever it is that she wants to do, whatever will make her the happiest. And Sylvia really seems to appreciate this advice, and I think it's really good advice too. You should do whatever you feel comfortable doing. Sylvia confronts Gary at church. He tells her that he was mad at her because he doesn't want her to get hurt or to be hanging out with a bunch of white people. He's also upset that she won't be there at his high school. Sylvia confronts Reggie at church, and he's mad at her because she'll be hanging out with white people. He's upset that she won't be there at his high school. She tells him that he doesn't understand. She brings up Candy, and he says he flirted with her because he was mad. So he did it because he was mad at her. He tells her he wants her to be his girlfriend. And things are sort of worked out between the two, but of course, there's still this issue looming over them that has not quite been resolved yet. So, I want you to stop this video, and next I want you to listen to the Excerpt 2 video.